So I'm Matt Robinson.
I'm Jonathan Ricks.
This is a review of the Track Response 4-16 by 42 millimeter for 223556.
Alright, so Matt, we've had a chance to shoot this a little while. Let's go back to the beginning. What did you think out of the box in the mounting process?
So initially out of the box, the one thing jumped out at me. I mean, it is some nice packaging that showed up, and being consumer direct, that really didn't matter. It was just a nice added touch. But when I opened it out of the box, I did notice first thing is, there's no scope cover, there's no sunshade. I don't like it really matters. The scope cover is the first thing that I don't use. I mean, I've got several sitting in a drawer at home that I haven't used. I've got 2 sunshades, 3 actually, that I've never put on it. I mean, it might matter. I don't know if you
I do use mine.
Yeah,
so it's very.
Just being objectively, I think that's one thing that you notice. It is a scope. I mean, you don't have the extra little details, but beyond that, it's got a good finish, a good look. Like I said, the packaging is nice. It looks like it was held pretty well. I mean, it shipped well for the most part. So we're not here to review the packaging. So onto the scope. It mounted pretty easy. I mean, it's a one-piece base, 2 hoods. It's just real simple. We had I think it's a level kit. It's something that we use for 700, but I just kind of lined it up with a pick rail here, lined it up on the top turret, and we were able to adjust it pretty well. And that proved, I guess, once we got it pretty level, we were able to actually dope the scope out to 300-400 yards and do some pretty good shooting. So it kind of helped to realize that with our ballistics app that we were using, it was tracking pretty well. So the vertical adjustment was good.
So there were no torque specs provided on the mount, right?
No, there weren't, and that's one thing. I guess you see a lot of people, manufacturers of mounts that don't provide torque specs. I guess they might be afraid of what scope you're going to put in it, or it might create damage to the scope, damage to the firearm. But in the mount, there was, it was just plain packaging for the most part. It was wrapped in some brown paper. There was no information as to what a torque spec was. But I mean, it's a pretty standard type thing, I guess. We assumed. What did you use, 35?
I use 35 inch-pounds for the base screws. Somewhere between 18 and 20 is what I would use for the ring screws, and I would use Loctite 242 or 243 to secure those. You can always make a witness mark with a silver Sharpie or a red Sharpie, and keep an eye on your fasteners. Watch for any movement.
Yeah, I wouldn't say we had any indication that we had any slippage though.
No, I wouldn't
once we got zeroed in.
there.
So, I mean, beyond that, reticle seemed pretty clear. I think this is $379 price point scope. Being consumer direct, I guess you don't have any of the marked up items, but it would be, I would assume, to be comparable to a $500-600 scope in the store.
Yeah.
So comparing it head to head with that, I'd say it's right in there with it. It had some features that were nice. I mean, you used the spring-loaded turret adjustment, didn't you?
Yeah. So it's pretty easy, really. All you do is zero in your scope. You lift the turret up, move it to 0, and it springs back down. No problem there. There's no 0 stop, so you do have to keep an eye on which rotation you're on if you start to go the wrong way. But nice tactile, audible clicks on both the windage and the elevation turret. We've got a parallax adjustment on the left-hand side.
Everything's just right there. I saw you were adjusting the magnification as you were finding some targets out there.
Yeah, that's right. And this being a second focal plane scope, one of the things you run into there is you have to be on 16 power. This being a 4-16 power scope to be able to use your BDC holdovers. So 16 power is pretty tight. So at 300 yards even, I was having to zoom out, acquire the target, zoom in, then I could use my holdovers, and it wasn't too much trouble to make hits there. I would like to see, I do like a first focal plane in something that goes up this high, something like a 1-4 or 1-6. I actually prefer a second focal plane, but it's workable, especially at the price point this is at.
And I guess that's shooter dependent, because I've never had a first focal plane. It hasn't mattered much to me, so it's kind of what you prefer.
Yep.
But I think it's got a pretty generous eye relief. It's pretty easy to pick up some of the targets, especially here at 100 yards. We brought it in about 4 or 5x. I'd guess that to be about 100, 110 yards, something like that. So we did a little transition of shooting from target to target. it was really easy to pick things up. So that was kind of nice. It made that fun, even offhand from the bipod on the bench. So the transitional shooting was good.
One thing I like about this zoom ring, I did have to adjust it to acquire those farther targets, but it does have a little knob here that adds some purchase to that zoom ring. It's got a little rubber overmolding, so you got a real nice grip on that. It's real smooth travel. Some scopes, they're low profile, they're a hard aluminum anodized finish, kind of hard to get a hold of. So that's one nice feature of this scope.
In some scopes I've seen, actually, that rubber overmolding can slip as you're adjusting it if it's not pulled in tight. I've actually got a binocular that does that, and it slips as you're rotating it, and this seemed to be attached pretty surely, so that was a good quality feature of it. But beyond that, there's not much more to say about it that I can think of. It was a good scope. We compared it side by side with a different one. Clarity seemed to be right in there with it. I think that's a little bit higher price point scope.
Yeah,
So,
it would be nice on this one to see a little thinner reticle. It did kind of crowd things at higher magnifications, so that's going to vary from person to person again, what you're used to, what your preferences are.
and if you're going to be using it for hunting, varmint hunting, something like that in low light conditions, then you might need a little more reticle out there to pick things up. But and if you're going to be distance shooting, target shooting, something way out 600, 700, 800 yards or further, it could crowd out, and that could be an issue. But I'm not sure that's necessarily what this is intended for, but it may be.
It's a good value, I think.
So there's another feature that I guess it's support for the scope is the Impact Ballistics program. It's online. We pulled it up. Actually, Rick's knew the BC of his bullet. Couldn't get the chronograph to work, so he had a pretty good idea of what the muzzle velocity was from previous shooting. So kind of guessed it for the most part. But, we were both kind of tinkering with it, and for the reticle, the Impact Ballistic reticle, it actually has a lot of etching in it. And you probably shot it at distance more than I did, so what were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, on the subject of BDC reticles, I generally prefer a milliradian based scope. That's what all my optics are set up on. That being said, if you're the kind of person that shoots one load out of one rifle a lot, this is going to be no problem for you. You just have a cheat sheet on your rifle somewhere. You just memorize your holdovers, and it's no issue there. But it didn't have too much trouble picking out at long range. Like we said earlier, it's a little bit thick of a reticle. It's something you'll have to look through and check out yourself. But
but as you started getting into some of the lower hatch marks and stuff, it seemed like it got a little bit more fine as we went down. So if you actually doped the scope, is where the issue was, I thought. But,
yeah, the reticle is a bit thick toward the center, but once you get down toward the lower stadia in the BDC reticle, there are some points and some dots that line up pretty easily on target there.
And so we pulled that up. It took us a minute. We were trying to dodge a thunderstorm. Had some pretty strong wind come in. So the first time we were trying to rush through it and didn't really put everything in. I think we shot it twice before the storm hit us. But while it was raining, we were inside hunkered down watching the tornado warning come through. We looked a little more into that. It was pretty user friendly. The program was. It's pretty straightforward. It's not going to account for your pressures. I don't think it had a lot of windage correction. I don't think a lot of the apps really do either, but it's pretty straightforward. Your BC, your drag coefficient, your muzzle velocity, scope height, bullet weight. Is there anything else?
Yeah, so we were actually able to choose our bullet from a drop-down menu. We were shooting 85 grains Barnes match burner, and so it pulled the BC for us and had all that information. Had a good selection of bullets to choose from.
Yeah, that was a nice, I guess, support feature for the scope. That's we tested it, put it with I guess Ballistics AE app, and checked it by actually dialing in the turret, just to, I guess a different check, but they both seem to be pretty proficient, quite proficient at getting us to miss.
Yep, so these are 1/4 inch at 100 clicks. Some people may be used to milliradian. Like I said, it's one of those things you get used to as you program your brain, and it's just by repetition. So we did find it to track pretty true. We dialed up, were able to make hits at 300 and 400 yards with that.
So just a few overall dimensions of it. It's a 1-inch tube, I think 42 millimeter objective. The 1 inch, it does potentially limit your adjustment if your type is going to dope your scope in at long ranges beyond what I'm capable of shooting, really. I don't think I'd ever run into any issues, but I think I'd have plenty of adjustment in this scope. 42 millimeter objective, I guess, is somewhat limiting on light intake and field of view, is it, you said?
Yeah, it will give you a little more field of view with a bigger objective. This is mounted in a appropriately sized 1-inch scope base, and it's got a generous amount of cantilever, give you all the eye relief you'd ever want on a scope. No issues mounting that up whatsoever.
I think we still had a few hatches or cuts to go forward on the receiver if we wanted to. So
About a 1/4 inch, 3/8 of an inch maybe.
yeah. And when I mounted this, I centered the box in front of the actual, in the middle of the post, so we could shift that around if we absolutely had to with the bases.